Hello friends, you are welcome to this session. We've been talking about questions, and we know that it's a very important tool in the teaching and learning process. But the question now is, when do you have to ask questions? This session deals with that. So the session is looking at when to question. Let's make progress. Now let's look at the objectives for this session. By the end of the session, you should be able to explain how the chemistry teacher could question his or her students at the beginning of a lesson, in the course of a lesson, at the end of a lesson. Now these are the stages at which you can ask questions. So let's look at questioning at the beginning of. Simple and stimulating questions are asked at the beginning of a lesson in order to usher students into the lesson. So you go to class, and before you present the concept that you intend presenting to them, you need to do some introduction. You need to do the set induction, and in that case, you may consider asking some simple questions. Like I said, this is known as a set induction. A teaching aid could as well be presented at the beginning of the lesson, and then you question students about it. The previous knowledge could be reviewed basically through questions, and then the thematic question around which teaching is organized to find solutions could as well be presented to students. Let's look at questioning in the course of a lesson. When you are moving from one step to another, as a teacher, you pose a question to summarize the previous step or what you presented previously. Or when you are to begin the new step, then you can begin with a question to direct the attention of students to a problem to be tackled. In the course of the lesson, questioning is very necessary for the following reasons: to direct students' thinking on course and to stress what is important. Of course, as the lesson is ongoing, some of them may not be with you. They will be thinking about other things, or they will be thinking about something in what you have presented, but that is not where you, the teacher, you want their attention to be. So you question them to draw their attention to what you want them to think of. And then it is necessary to make students reason and solve problems themselves. And third, to appraise systematically what is taught. You question to be sure that what you taught was well received by students. Okay, so let's look at questioning at the end of a lesson. Lessons normally end with evaluation. You need to evaluate to be sure that you have achieved the objectives. At the end of a lesson, questioning or question is meant to find out whether the lesson objectives have been achieved or not. When you ask and they are able to provide you with the responses you want, then you can thank God because you have achieved your objectives. Questions at the end of a lesson should go beyond mere recall to higher order and divergent questions. Sometimes we teach deep into our time such that when we have just a minute to close or like 2 minutes to close, that's the time that we want to evaluate the lesson, and that will limit us to just some simple recall questions. So you ask one recall question and then they answer you and you move on. No, that shouldn't be the case. Allocate enough time for questioning at the end of the lesson or for evaluation at the end of the question, so that your questions would go beyond mere recalls. In this case too, you are going to be guided by the objectives. If in your objective you stated that by the end of the lesson, students should be able to explain, then your question should reflect such objective. Your question shouldn't be what is, but it should be explained. So you need enough time for that. Okay, so we are ending this session with these questions. You have to explain how the chemistry teacher could question his or her students at the beginning of a lesson, in the course of a lesson, and at the end of a lesson. My name is Robert Chumesi Kuma. Thank you.